this is Dena, welcome to the Den. Labyrinth is a movie I've been wanting to cover for a very long time. In fact, it would have been the first Film Den episode, but just when I started seriously thinking about getting started on it, Nostalgia Chick's video about it came out, so I held off and covered Pet Sematary instead. And I know there's nothing wrong with more than one video producer talking about the same movie. I mean, Nostalgia Critic and Mike J both ended up talking about Catwoman after I did, and I was fine with that. I just figure that if I do it right after someone else, it'll look like I'm trying to copy them or something. So if someone beats me to something I want to make a video about, I tend to postpone it for a bit. In the case with Labyrinth, though, that seemed to happen over and over. Just when I started thinking about covering it again, someone else would beat me to it and it'd go right back onto the back burner. Sadly, my reason for doing it now isn't the best. I started working on this video right after hearing about the death of David Bowie, and I just figured that if I was ever going to cover Labyrinth, now would be the best time. But basically, I grew up with this movie. Thanks to the internet, it's kind of exploded in popularity over the past decade or so, but I've been watching it since it first aired on HBO back in the 80s, back when no one else had ever heard of it. But basically, I liked Labyrinth before it was cool. Like most people around my age, I grew up on Sesame Street and The Muppet Show, and I even had an interest in FX and animatronics for a while, if not puppetry per se, so I was always a big fan of Jim Henson. He had a great imagination, and a sometimes twisted sense of humor.
There is somebody underneath me. What? Don't look!
I actually didn't know about David Bowie at the time this movie came out, other than he was some rock singer that my mom liked. Hey, I was 11, okay? Trust me, I definitely gained an appreciation for him, even if this movie was what started it. In any case, makeup and theatrics was nothing new to David Bowie. In fact, he already had a pretty extensive acting career and had definitely proven himself in that area. And creating a musical in a fantasy setting with his unique brand of rock music is a pretty awesome idea when you really break it down. Speaking of music, this opening never fails to grab me. Right away you can tell there's something dark and mystical going on. And then it sort of morphs into this soft rock song that
it's only forever, not long at all.
Still has hints of mysticism, and the whole time we're treated to this cool little CG fest featuring an owl. And I've gotta say, this looks damn good for 1986. There are Sci-Fi Channel movies made a few years ago where the CG isn't this convincing. It's also worth mentioning that this was the first use of a realistic CG animal in a film. Beautiful transition. Also, I just spent a whole paragraph talking about the opening credits. We may be here a while. I get a kick of how this movie officially starts. It looks like it takes place in some kind of medieval or fantasy setting, and then we find out she's rehearsing a play, but the book is leather-bound, so maybe it's still a medieval setting.
You have no power over me.
And then a clock starts chiming, but it's kind of an old-fashioned clock tower, so it could still be, okay, she's wearing jeans, present time.
I'm sorry.
Well, don't stand there in the rain, come on!
So apparently she was supposed to be home by a certain time, and she's late, so her stepmom lays into her a bit.
We were worried about you.
I can't do anything right, can I?
Yeah, our main character, Sarah, is a total brat, and not very likable in the beginning, but I feel the need to defend her a bit. First of all, she's 15. And this movie is kind of subtle about it, but her real mom is out of the picture for whatever reason. Add to that the fact that presumably she spent the first 15 years of her life being an only child, and now suddenly she has this annoying infant half-brother to deal with. All that together can be kind of rough on a kid, and it's kind of normal to lash out. Annoying, but normal. This panning shot of her room tells us that she's heavily into fantasy stuff and uses it as a form of escapism. We also see that her mom is apparently an actress. There are also a lot of little details in this movie that are easy to miss, and I tend to pick up on something new every time I watch it. Nearly everything in her room foreshadows something that shows up later. And I just realized that's David Bowie in those two pictures. That brings up some interesting ideas that I'm going to talk about later.
Someone save me! Someone take me away from this awful place!
Oh, and she's also a drama queen.
Once upon a time, there was a beautiful young girl whose stepmother always made her stay home with the baby. And the young girl was practically a slave.
Yeah, keep complaining about your first world problems, princess. Again, 15.
She called on the goblins for help. But the girl knew that the king of the goblins would keep the baby in his castle forever and ever and ever, and turn it into a goblin.
The phrase, "be careful what you wish for," comes to mind. You never know when a bunch of goblins are listening in.
Is he going to say it? Say what?
Yeah, this is definitely a Jim Henson movie.
Wherever you may be, take this child of mine far away from me!
By the way, I recommend occasionally hitting pause and just checking out all the different goblins. They're all unique. For some reason, this one with the big eyes is my favorite in this scene. There was a crazy amount of work put into this movie.
Oh, I wish I did know what to say to make the goblins take you away.
I wish the goblins would come and take you away right now. That's not hard, is it?
Sometimes a direct approach is the best one. I love how she's just like, fuck that kid, let him cry.
I wish the goblins would come and take you away. Right now. Why aren't you crying?
There is just no pleasing this girl. This scene is actually pretty tense. I mean, everything being a Muppet softens it a bit, but they still do a really good job with setting the mood. A wild animal being really desperate to get in kind of helps. Nice entrance. I like how he doesn't even need to say anything at first, and then simply...
I want my brother back, please, if it's all the same.
What's said is said.
But I didn't mean it.
Oh, you didn't. Go back to your room. Play with your toys and your costumes. Forget about the baby.
I can't.
I've brought you a gift.
What is it?
I love how he's able to distract her with a shiny object so easily. Oh no, my brother has been kidnapped! Ooh, present! Fun fact, that's not David Bowie juggling the crystal. It's a professional juggler who had to do the movements from behind him without being able to see what he was doing, which is pretty damn impressive. It's not that easy to spot either if you're not looking for it.
This is not a gift for an ordinary girl who takes care of a screaming baby.
Anyway, he makes a vague promise that he'll give her everything she wants, only on the condition that he can keep the baby. Of course she says no. Despite all her posturing earlier about how much she hated Toby, she's not going to just let him be taken. I mean, she might get grounded or something.
You must be so scared.
Sarah, don't defy me.
The bit with the snake kind of disturbed me when I was a kid. Anyway, naturally she has to go through the labyrinth to Jareth's castle and confront him before he'll give back her brother. Speaking of the labyrinth, there's a model of it in her bedroom.
You have 13 hours in which to solve the labyrinth before your baby brother becomes one of us forever. Such a pity.
On the way there, she runs into someone.
Excuse me?
Oh, excuse me. Oh, it's you.
I like how he recognizes her. Could be that Jareth told him about her, or maybe it's because he's one of her bookends. I do get a kick out of how he seems like he's an asshole for spraying fairies with what looks like insecticide as if they were pests.
Poor thing. You monster.
Then it's revealed that maybe in this world that's exactly what they are.
What did you expect fairies to do? Oh, you little...
He doesn't have to enjoy it so much, though. There's kind of a not-so-subtle running theme that Sarah takes things at face value and that she really needs to learn that she doesn't know as much as she thinks she does. I'd do a counter, but I'd be here all day if I did. Instead, I'll just do a counter of how often someone mispronounces Hoggle's name.
Horrible.
Huh? No, I ain't. I'm Hoggle. Who are you?
Sarah.
That's what I thought.
Okay, I know that one doesn't technically count since it's not what she meant, but he reacts as if she was because people mispronounce his name all the time. Plus it sets up the running gag, so I'm counting it. After a bit of jerking her around, he eventually shows her how to get into the labyrinth.
You know your problem. You take too many things for granted.
You think?
Thanks for nothing, Hogwarts.
Oh, it's Hoggle!
Clearly these two don't get along. I'm sure they won't become best friends by the end of this movie or anything. It's kind of hard to miss the eyeball plants here, but there are a lot of scenes later on where you can see them in the background if you look for them. And they're always moving around. It's pretty cool. So Sarah runs through the labyrinth until she gets fed up with not finding anything and slams herself against the wall. But then she gets startled by her friend Tiffany. Oh wait, wrong movie. Actually, it's...
Hello.
The cutest little worm ever.
Come inside, meet the missus.
He's a British worm, and very polite. Also eyeball plants. He's so teeny, and look at his little red scarf.
Come inside and have a nice cup of tea.
Also, I love how he keeps inviting her inside despite that there's no way she'd fit through that little hole.
That's just wall. There's no way through.
Things are not always what they seem in this place. So, you can't take anything for granted.
You think?
Hey!
Hey, hang on! Never go that way.
You'd think she would have asked why first. To be fair, she is in a hurry.
Should have gone straight to that castle.
Meanwhile... I feel you, Jareth. I can't stand the sound of a screaming baby.
You remind me of the babe. Babe with the power. Power of voodoo. You do. Remind me of the babe.
By the way, that's a really obscure reference to an old Shirley Temple movie.
Hey, you remind me of a man.
What man?
The man with the power.
What power?
The power of hoodoo.
Hoodoo?
You do.
Do what?
Remind me of a man.
What man?
A goblin babe. Well,
I love how he makes them laugh at his jokes.
I saw my baby crying hard as babe could cry. What could I do?
So the first song after the opening anyway is Magic Dance, which is basically just Jareth entertaining the kid to shut him up. And it works.
Dance, magic dance, dance, magic dance.
Yeah, I don't think I could be sad while being serenaded by David Bowie either. Scenes like this really make me hate YouTube's content ID system because I have to keep the clips under 10 seconds, which is a real pain when you're trying to showcase a musical. I love all of the songs in this movie, and I'm not sure if I can really pick a favorite, but this one is definitely the most fun.
Then baby said, dance, magic dance, dance, magic dance.
Also, this goblin kind of looks like a caricature of Cosmo Kramer to me.
Dance, magic dance, talk magic.
Notice that one goblin distracts him. I always used to think he threw the baby up in the air and just walked away on purpose. Meanwhile, Sarah is trying to be inventive by drawing arrows on the ground to keep track of where she's been if she gets lost. Which would make it too easy, so of course it doesn't work out. Seriously, I like the idea that some of those bricks are actually stone doors to where tiny little people live underground. Even if it's mainly played for laughs here, it's still pretty creative.
What a horrible place this is. It's not fair.
That's right, it's not fair.
Then she runs into these guys. I love these guys.
One of them leads to the castle at the center of the labyrinth, and the other one leads to certain death. Ooh.
One of them always tells the truth, one of them always lies, and she can only ask one of them.
Would he tell me that this door leads to the castle?
Yes?
Then the other door leads to the castle, and this door leads to certain death.
He could be telling the truth.
But then you wouldn't be. So if you told me that he said yes, I know the answer is no.
But I could be telling the truth.
But then he would be lying.
30 years later, and trying to make sense out of that still makes my brain hurt.
Is that right? I don't know. I've never understood it.
I think I'm getting smarter.
Yes, dear, you know everything.
Help!
What do you mean, help? We are helping.
We're helping hands.
I love these guys too. This is so creative, and it must have been interesting to film.
Which way? Up or down? We haven't got all day.
Since I'm pointed that way, I guess I'll go down.
She chose down.
Was that wrong?
That one's my favorite.
She's in the oubliette. Shut up!
They only ever laugh when he doesn't want them to.
She'll soon give up when she realizes she has to start all over again. Well, love.
Oh, it's you.
Hi, Hoggle.
Well, I knew you were gonna get into trouble as soon as I met you. This is an oubliette. The labyrinth's full of them. It's a place to put people to forget about them.
That's putting it nicely. To be fair, apparently the horror stories of like droves of people being shoved into dark holes and left to starve to death in medieval times has been exaggerated anyway. It was actually kind of funny doing a Google search on oubliette and finding websites that conflicted with each other. According to Wikipedia, a lot of what modern people think are tiny prisons were actually used for storing food and such. So Hoggle offers to get her out, but the only exit he knows of leads back out of the labyrinth.
No, I'm doing okay.
He's supposed to be working for Jareth, but he already has a soft spot for Sarah.
Why are you so concerned about me?
Well, I am, that's all.
You like jewelry, don't you?
But it turns out that he likes plastic jewelry, so she bribes him to help her.
Plastic. Ah, this is it. Come on, then.
Don't go on. Go back while you still can.
Yeah, don't pay any attention to them. They're just false alarms. You get a lot of them in the labyrinth, especially when you're on the right track.
All I can think of right now is all the faces on the buildings in Batman Returns and how weird it would be if they talked.
Beware,
Just
Fuzzer.
forget it.
Oh, please. I haven't said it for such a long time.
Oh look, a crystal ball. Only good things can come from that.
Ah, what have we here?
Nothing.
Nothing? Nothing, tra-la-la? Hello, Hedgewort.
Hogwarts.
Hoggle?
Hoggle, can it be that you're helping this girl?
A little trickery on my part. But actually...
What is that plastic thing round your wrist?
I love how distracted he is by how bad that bracelet looks, or maybe he's just that picky.
Higgle.
Hoggle?
Yes, if I thought for 1 second that you were betraying me, I'd be forced to suspend you headfirst in the bog of eternal stench. How are you enjoying my labyrinth?
It's a piece of cake.
I know, right? There she goes again.
It's not fair!
You say that so often. I wonder what your basis for comparison is.
Ooh, she's gonna need some ice for that burn. And he's not done yet.
No, the cleaners! What?
Ooh, that looks vicious. It's also on an album cover in her room. I actually didn't catch that one until a few years ago. So they just barely get out of it, and at this point Sarah's doubting that she can trust Hoggle.
Let me put it this way. What choice have you got?
You're right.
Hoggle admits that he's afraid of Jareth, and there's some foreshadowing about the Bog of Eternal Stench that was mentioned a minute ago.
If you so much as put a foot in the bog of stench, you'll smell bad for the rest of your life.
That's actually pretty messed up if you think about it. It wouldn't physically hurt you, but you'd end up being a social outcast because no one could stand to be around you. Permanently. Wow, that ladder led to the opening of a big pot that's sitting on a table. I don't think I ever noticed that. I think I always just assumed that the pot was attached to the floor and it had a hole in the bottom. I love how nonsensical that is. So Hoggle suddenly decides to ditch Sarah, but she's not having any of that, resulting in some great slapstick.
It's not fair!
No, it isn't. But that's the way it is.
Yeah, it's easier to think that when you're not the one complaining. Oh well, an epiphany is an epiphany. So they come across a so-called wise man who has a bird on his head. A live talking bird. Do I even need to mention that this movie is weird? I think that went without saying by about 5 minutes in.
And who is this?
My friend.
Check out Hoggle's reaction to that.
What can I...
So the wise man gives some advice that's really just vague nonsense.
The way forward is sometimes the way back.
Aye, will you listen to this crap?
That is one smart-ass hat.
I'm certainly not getting anywhere at the moment.
Ha! Join the club. Please, leave a contribution in the little box.
I guess I can spare this.
Boy, Hoggle really likes jewelry. Her giving away that ring almost seems to cause him physical pain.
It's so stimulating being your head.
So anyway, Hoggle is really touched that she called him a friend.
I ain't never been no one's friend before. Huh.
But that doesn't last long.
Hoggle ain't no one's friend. He looks after himself, like everyone. Yeah. Hoggle is Hoggle's friend.
Hoggle!
So going by her recent lesson that things aren't always what they seem, she cautiously checks it out to find a big monster being tortured by some guards. That's actually kind of dark, especially once you realize that the method they're using is very similar to a medieval torture device that I'm not going to name or show you a picture of, because I don't want to go down that rabbit hole and you probably don't either. If you really pay attention, you'll notice that the creature sees her and is hoping she wants to help, so he makes a specific noise that causes a rock to roll in her direction. It's hard to understand what they're saying, but I think their voices are supposed to be Asian stereotypes because one of them says, "Oh, my aching sushi."
Oh, my aching sushi!
Anyway, the monster, Ludo, turns out to be friendly, so Sarah helps him down.
Ludo, down. Friend?
That's right, Ludo. I'm Sarah.
He's adorable, but a little slow on the uptake.
Sarah, friend.
Do you know the way?
For a long time, I really thought that was Frank Oz doing his voice. It still really sounds like him to me.
No.
But it's apparently one of the artists who worked on the movie. He's also a plushie in Sarah's room. So soon after, a pair of door knockers appear.
It's very rude to stare.
One can't hear because the knocker's going through its ears, and the other can't talk because the knocker is in his mouth. I love how she hands it to Ludo, who immediately starts playing with it. The knockers aren't much help, except to say that if she knocks on one of the doors, it'll open. Aww.
I don't want that thing back in my mouth.
Come on, I want to knock.
That was pretty clever, actually. Once she gets over her habit of thinking she knows everything, she proves that she can actually be pretty smart. Go Sarah.
Sorry.
That's all right, I'm used to it.
So the door leads to a dark, scary forest. Even Ludo is nervous.
Ludo's scared.
Oh, give me your hand. Imagine a big thing like you being scared.
Yeah.
Meanwhile...
Well, he's a lively little chap. I think I'll call him Jareth. He's got my eyes.
I hope not. Fun fact about David Bowie that you may have already noticed. At some point in his youth, he got punched in the eye, resulting in that pupil being permanently dilated, making his eyes look kind of mismatched. I actually think it looks kind of cool and unique, but it must have been a pain to deal with, as you can imagine if you've ever had an eye doctor dilate your pupils.
See, Ludo? There's nothing to be afraid of.
Back in the forest, Ludo falls down a trapdoor and Sarah's left alone again. Check out that statue that looks like Jareth's face. Also notice that it's in pieces, so you have to be looking at it from a certain angle to see it. That's pretty creative. Anyway, Hoggle hears Sarah calling for help, so he has a change of heart about abandoning her, and he's about to go back.
Well, if it isn't you.
So Hoggle tries to convince Jareth that he's not actually going to help Sarah, he's just going to trick her into going back to the beginning of the labyrinth. But Jareth is no dummy.
Oh dear, poor Hoghead.
Hoggle.
I'm off to take the little lady back to the beginning of the labyrinth, just like we planned.
Wait!
I adore Jareth in this scene. He does the villain thing really well overall, but he's just fantastic here.
I won't do nothing to harm her.
Oh, come, Hogbrain. I'm surprised at you losing your head over a girl.
Meanwhile, poor Hoggle is especially sad and pathetic.
And Hoggle, if she ever kisses you, I'll turn you into a prince.
You will?
Prince of the land of stench.
So we're just about at the halfway mark. A lot of stuff has happened already, but things are really about to get crazy and more characters are about to be introduced. If you haven't seen Labyrinth yet, please watch it before part 2.